Hello, and welcome to Fintech Surge Podcast, creating a wealth of opportunities through fintech innovations in the Middle East for the Middle East. Powered by Fintech Surge, the region's leading fintech festival, hosted by Dubai World Trade Center alongside GITEX Global. Hello, and welcome to the Fintech Surge Podcast. I'm excited to be joined today by Oleksandr Yavorskyi. Did I say that correct, Alexander?
Yep,
You've
totally.
all right, perfect. From Deep Knowledge Group. Thank you for joining us, Alexander.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Alexander, from what I understand, you're actually a mathematician with a pharma background, and you're focusing on leveraging big data and machine learning to create predictive analytics and database market insights. How did you go from mathematician to pharma background to big data and machine learning?
Yeah, so basically, yeah, it's kind of a variety. On my side, I was always interested in something related to modeling, and basically, pharma, it allows you to model as much as you probably can. So
Mhm.
computational biology, and computational chemistry, it's definitely a hot topic right now. So this was my previous experience, and yeah, totally right. Right now, I'm working at DKG and try to implement up to date machine learning pipelines in order to provide different sets of analytics, predictive analytics included, for different types of investors. Our main focus, I think, it's private equity. Compared to many other companies that try to focus on public equity, we've decided to choose another way here, and provide something valuable for the market.
That's amazing. That's a pretty impressive journey that you took to get from to pharma to fintech, I guess. So
They're definitely quite alike, to be
yeah,
honest.
absolutely. And so I think that you would have a very interesting perspective to the question that we asked to all of the guests on our podcast. In your own words, what does fintech actually mean to you?
Okay. So I think it might be rather a long description, so to speak, but I'll try to make it as short as possible. For me personally, fintech is probably all tech things. Is way to optimize an existing way of doing things, right? So the same we have in pharma, why we're doing computational things, anyway. And some people tend to underestimate, optimization significance, and they tend to look for some sort of abstract disruption. That it's a catchy word right now: disruption here, disruption there. Yet
Mhm.
they need to understand that disruption itself is always related to the optimization. At the same time, operation and many other enhancements that we can do that allow us to reimagine the existing workflow basically, and provide right means to launch disruptive products themselves. And given that finance right now, and not only right now but basically throughout the history of human beings, the finance is omnipresent. And fintech itself is not about like only financial technologies only. In fact, it's about the way we live our lives. And there are some interesting examples of such intersections in the longevity journal, for example, that we published recently, which shows basically how deep the roots of the fintech can basically go. Yeah, so this is for the fintech on my side.
Yeah, that's amazing, and I think that it's clear that you have a deep understanding of fintech and all the components that go into it. So kind of in layman's terms, what is your role at Deep Knowledge Group? How did they get the most value out of you?
Yeah, so I govern technological development, so to speak, of IT products and projects within the consortium. In addition, I manage research and analytical work at the DKG subsidiaries called the InvestTech Advanced Solutions. So basically, I started as an investment analyst, right, because of my pharma experience, and I, made a deep dive into pharma and these type of things. And then I realized that I can bring more to the company while leveraging certain, ML-based solutions. And definitely, we already had some developments before I joined, and I've just stepped into the streamline.
Yeah, that's great. And so obviously you had a pretty big interest in big data and machine learning from your background. How did you choose to use big data and machine learning to fit into fintech?
So basically, the first time I was involved in machine learning was during my master's program. So I specialize in dynamic of system, and when you're studying how certain systems evolve, financial system or any other systems, biological, you can see that some of them have specific, evolution patterns, yet some others tend to be evolved like almost chaotically. This brought me to the question whether we can, train an algorithm to predict the evolution of the system, and in fact, we can. And this was like my first time I met machine learning in person, so to speak. Yeah, and when I joined Deep Knowledge Group, it was like 18 months ago or something. Um, at that time, we like, as I mentioned before, we already had some developments in this area, and part of my work is to enhance and enrich those developments and approaches. And the reason we have decided to, use machine learning itself is because, some of the people, they tend to see machine learning as a quite a what do you say, a data greedy approach, for analytics,
Mhm.
because you need a lot of data, you need a lot of
Of
information,
course.
and that's why big data, right?
Hmm.
But and this is true, but sometimes people tend to miss the simple fact about ML, that it basically can allow you to overcome data scarcity, in many cases. And this is the case we explore actively at DKG. As I've mentioned before, we try to implement machine learning for assessment of the areas of the financial, industry itself, and investment industry, where the data scarcity level is really high. So
Right.
this is the key we try to, try to formulate for the industry itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you touched on a big point is that, about, 5 or 10 years ago was the age of the data, right? I mean, data was really like currency. The more data you could collect, the better it would be. And then I think we got to a point where, we needed people kind of like you that now what do we do with all this data? What can we actually learn from it? What can we build with it? How can we actually use this data to make progress and to improve the world and to improve people's experiences with our products. And I think that that's really where machine learning came from. Is that we had all this data and we figured, well, what can we use this for? And I think that's whenever machine learning really started to kind of take off and realize, well, the more data you can feed into this machine, the more it can learn and the bigger things it can push out.
Yeah, so basically, I think a big relief was when we understood that. So yeah, it's right that, like 20 years ago, something we were about the data itself, and we tried to gather as much data as possible. But we clearly understood at that time that there is no way we can leverage, already existing solutions to analyze these amounts of data, right? We cannot
Hmm.
derive any meaning. And yeah, this was a big relief when we understood that applying at that time comparatively, simple mathematical approaches, we can basically get, excellent data driven insights. So yeah, this is definitely the key. And many people tend to see, on the other hand, like machine learning as answer to all of our questions. It's definitely not the case. But it's true that for certain aspects, of our, society development, you cannot move further without ML at all.
Right, absolutely, and it's such a big thing that I think that not everybody completely wraps their mind around how big of a thing that machine learning really is and how many things can come out of you know what a machine can learn. And one of the things that we talk about that the FinTech Surge podcast and what's going to be really put on display at the FinTech Surge event in October at the Dubai World Trade Center is this concept of AI financial advice. Where you're basically getting robo advice, basically machine learning to give you advice on how to manage your wealth. Um, Do you have a lot of experience with this, or how have you seen the market's response to AI financial advice?
Yeah, so I believe that the question that you ask, it highly depends on the definitions that we use. So basically, what do we understand, by ML-based advisory or ML-based wealth management? Because it's just a brief example. So if I run a absolutely classical hedge fund, for example, right,
Hmm.
and some of my quant analysts use in only one particular case some specific machine learning approach, for example, for in order to cluster some companies. Is it AI? Is my hedge fund an AI driven hedge fund or not?
Hmm.
So this is the question. So if but even if we say so, there are many other examples where we tend to use machine sourced advices on how to manage our money. And it's a great topic here, the democratization of the investments. So a lot of people right now tend to invest their money in stocks, any other equity, angel investors, and so on and so forth. And most of those people, they are not financial specialists themselves,
Hmm.
right? So they need to use some sort of advice from someone, in order to understand how to allocate money. And this is true when you open any website. You can find different types of metrics
Of
that were
course.
computed and formulated based on the machine learning, right?
Hmm.
Different approaches of machine learning and artificial intelligence in general. So I think it's already the case that we are living in the era where investments, finance are already driven by machine learning solutions. The
Sure.
other question here is whether it is, whether it's possible to be, to rely on such solutions in, all of the cases we have right now in finance and economy. And I think we recently had a sort of a webinar too. And I was talking about the alternative data, and during the discussion, the kind of the same question was asked, and I said that until we until we teach machines how to be creative, we cannot
Hmm.
rely on them fully. So it's
Sure.
definitely the case that machine learning, it's a part of our current finance world. But I don't see machine learning being substituting all of us from the finance in the
Okay.
next 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question. Would you trust a machine who has had all this data and knows how to analyze data? Because I think we can all agree that machines can process and analyze and data way faster and a lot more data than your average human can, or any human can for that matter. Um, so I was going to ask, would you trust the machine to give you kind of what it predicts the trends are going to be in the financial markets, and would you invest based on the machine's suggestions?
Yes. So basically, once again, definition. So if we think about our current state, let's imagine some analyst who's working with Excel, right,
Hmm.
and uses a specific formula in Excel, embedded in Excel, right. So are we like 100% sure that this formula is correct? I mean, we
Right.
we
Yes.
we we really hope that it's correct, right? But no one tests it manually, right? So
Sure.
and this is the case basically. So I do believe that people will rely on machine learning more and more in the future, not only because it's about like leveraging big data,
Mhm.
rather because machine learning itself, it's great in one very important thing. It can basically show you the hidden dependencies, something that you cannot think of before you saw let's put it the simple way, the correlation, right. So and this is a great thing about machine learning. And I do believe, yes, that yes, we will rely on ML further, and once again because of democratization of investments, and once again because machine learning is a great tool that can basically give you not an advice but rather a tip,
Hmm.
where you should head.
Yeah, sure. And that's actually brings me to my next question is that, if we do, let's say, get rid of financial advisors, we get rid of the human aspect of it, which I'm not quite sure that everybody would want to. I think that, sometimes we do prefer, sitting down and having a conversation with someone that understands our needs, even though we can tell a machine what our needs are. It's always great to have somebody that understands us from a human point of view. But if, let's say we were to migrate towards a society where, robots and machines are going to tell us, what is the best financial advice that they can give us, wouldn't that mean basically everybody is getting the same financial advice? If I'm sitting here in Dubai, somebody else in Hong Kong, somebody else in New York, and all of the machines that are giving them advice are using the same data, wouldn't we all be receiving the same advice? In which case, that advice would be actually, kind of null.
Yep. So that's true. It might be the case if we think a little bit that if all of us would use the same advice, then there is no earnings, right? No benefit,
Hmm.
because if you want to use some investment strategy, the strategy itself should be a little bit strange. If
Sure.
let's put it this way, right?
You
So
need to bet
it's
against
in
somebody,
obvious,
right?
right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but here I would rather draw an example. So let's imagine we're talking about people who drive to work, every
Hmm.
day, and all of us, let's say, or most of us, tend to rely on public transportation, right? But it's
Right.
not the case that we arrive at the same place because we have
Hmm.
different jobs, right? And that
Oh, yeah.
basically doesn't mean that we arrive, at the same time, or spending the same amount of time. And this is the case for investments too, because when we think about the, advice, uh, and you're totally right, we are people, but we all different because of that.
Hmm.
And me as a human, as potential investor, I have my own needs, and you have your own, and this will imply that we will have two different advices. At the same
Right.
time, if we're thinking about the machine learning itself, it's like a machine. Not all of us tend to buy Ford or Tesla. We
Hmm.
tend to have our own aspirations, our own things that we like, don't like, colors, all this
Right.
stuff. And this is the case for machine learning. It's not like
Sure.
you have one algorithm that is perfect and and you use it. It's
Hmm.
definitely not the case. We try to develop new and new algorithms every day, and I'm not sure that we basically will end up in any situation like that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you make a great point with the example that you gave because you know there are financial advisors all over the world. Objectively, they should have access to the same information as each other, but still they're going to give different advice to their clients, right? Even two clients with the same amount of savings, the same amount of earnings, same objectives, depending on who their financial advisor is, they're going to get different advice from two
Yeah.
different people that you would expect to have the same exact perspective and the same exact information. But
Yep.
because they are people, because there is an emotional aspect to it, because there's a lot of, as you mentioned before, dependencies that drive a decision. Yes, it is going to be different advice, and that's sort of the reason why there are earnings in the market, because it has to be somebody betting that this will go down, somebody else betting that it's going to go up, and one of them will win and one of them will not in this particular case. um yeah, and it definitely make a good point, because if it did come down to basically all of the machines using the same calculations, using the same amount of data, they would all recommend investing into the same tools, in which case that one tool would just skyrocket until it crashed, right? It
Yep.
wouldn't be great for the investors. It wouldn't be great for the market. It wouldn't even be great for that one particular fund, because as soon as the machine decides, okay, well, this is the new one to go with, then whichever one that they were investing in before is all of a sudden going to crash, and nobody would want to invest into that because the machines has told it not to. Um,
Yep.
yeah, and so I guess one question I've been kind of dying to ask since we started is machine learning the new AI, or are we not calling it AI anymore? Is it just machine learning is the new word for it?
Yeah, so basically, I tend to, I tend to follow the following definitions and descriptions. So basically, when we think about the AI, so we can think of, I had a conversation with one of the machine learning experts this morning, and we've discussed almost the same thing, but related to a little bit other area. And yes, so he mentioned that 10 to 20 years ago, Excel might be looking as AI for the people, because basically what it does, basically a sort of a machine that do some creative or half creative work for you, right? So
Hmm.
if we're thinking about artificial intelligence in general, it's sort of a way to produce certain answers to the question that cannot be answered by any other algorithms that do not require that much data. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but the part of this approach is where you do not know the rules and you try to find them. You only have like the input and output, and you do not know how to, what rule brings the input to the output. And this is
Right.
basically the machine learning. Yeah.
Hmm.
So it's basically a part of the a part of the artificial intelligence. But yeah, something like that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That was a great explanation that you just gave. And so I guess we've discussed a little bit about you know AI or machine learning will not probably replace financial advisors, but they'll help financial advisors, right?
Yeah.
And so, how do you think wealth advisory will look in the next 10 or 15 years? Is there going to be more financial advisors because now they'll have the use of this machine learning, which will grant them better access, or there'll be less financial advisors because more consumers will have day-to-day access to machine learnings. Um, will it be completely wiped off the map? So, how do you see wealth advisory evolving in the next 10 or 15 years, especially considering how fast it has become what it is today?
Yeah. So basically, there are two aspects I want to cover. According to your question. So first, I think, as I mentioned before, right? So we will rely on AI-based solutions more in the future, and I believe that a ML-driven system will still be part of public equity area only. So if you're talking about financial advisor, there, some of them advise in public equity,
Hmm.
some of them in private equity. So yeah, so I think machine learning, as it is now, will start be part of the public equity area and move into private equity markets actively. And this is the part of our pipeline too, right? To bring such solutions for VCs, angels, investors, and so on. And I presume that in 10, 15 years, yeah, probably we will be able to use more micro investments, ML-based solutions, democratizing the investment process even further. Because I think this is the case. This is the case why we use ML, in its variety right now. It's not like something, corner case where someone uses some ML. This is because the democratization. And in addition, I see certain changes in the working environment. In fact, so you've mentioned about people losing their jobs because of the ML. And so on and so forth. I don't think this will be the case because we are the people who create in machine learning, at least as of now. It's not like the code writes the code. Yeah, but I believe that certain ML proficiency will become an omnipresent requirement in most of the wealth or investments, and collateral areas, as it is, for example, understanding of what is convertible notes is now, right? So you cannot be a financial advisor without this, right? And in
Uh-huh.
the future, it will be like a requirement. Okay, you need to have certain proficiency in clustering stuff or predictions and so on and so forth based on ML, just to fit the current agenda, so to speak.
Okay, great. I mean, look, I appreciate the call. I think that this has been a super insightful conversation. As I mentioned before, we do have a lot of discussions on fintech, and sometimes the real interest tends to be in payments. Pay tech, especially everybody is familiar with cashless payments, with click to pay, with buy now pay later is becoming super popular these days. Of course, everybody has their eye on paying with cryptocurrency. Every other day there's a new real estate agencies that accepting cryptocurrency, new car dealerships that are accepting cryptocurrency. And so, it is really refreshing to have a conversation about, well, what about wealth tech? Wealth tech is something that, really, sets the path for all of us for the future. And, there's a lot of great things that are happening that, I think that if we just keep an eye out on it, then, we'll all be able to take advantage of this new technology.
Yep, for sure. So, as you mentioned correctly about the wealth tech itself, I do see that we cannot treat wealth tech and as just the way to apply machine learning to the wealth management or something like that. It's definitely not the case here,
Hmm.
because it's not even the case for investments, but for wealth tech and fintech, it's definitely not the case. Here, we definitely need to bring to the discussion what is called Web3, right? So
Right.
we need to think about the blockchain. We need to think about decentralized currencies and so on and so forth. But here is the thing. Once again, if we think about like decentralized, currencies, like or NFTs, for example, right? It's the market. It's the market itself, and the way we tend to manage our assets right now, it's more on the human side, I would say, right? So we decide on our own whether or not to invest in a given NFT thing, or whether or not to, how to manage our digital assets, right?
Hmm.
But I do believe, yeah, that in future, in the near future, it will become a little bit more automated, I would say, meaning that we will see the rise of more startups and companies that provide you with half automated, semi-automated ways to invest your money and receive certain earnings month by month. And if we would imagine that such investments, is the micro investments that I mentioned before, such investments, it won't be definitely like millions and millions from every person, right? It's about like some small amounts of money, and you definitely do not want to put an analyst to manage $200 of
Right.
investment, right?
Yeah.
You would rather optimize it somehow, put it in a bigger jar, for example, and as one way to go. But let's imagine you cannot do that because of the compliance, or because of the specific requirements from this client, right? In this case, you still want the money, but you cannot apply analyst because it will take too much time. And this is where, once again, automated investment solutions, automated wealth management can be the answer to this question. And basically, it will be based on the ML/AI system.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us, Alexander. As I mentioned, is really insightful, and I appreciate all that you shared with us about machine learning, AI, and wealth tech. And hopefully we get to have a chat soon. As you know, that we're putting on the FinTech Surge Festival in October 2022, from the 10th to the 13th at the Dubai World Trade Center, and hopefully you and some of the team from Deep Knowledge Group can come out and have a chat with us, and get to see a lot of the innovations that I think that you would fit right along with.
Yep, I think it would be, mutual side beneficial thing
Yeah,
that we'll enjoy.
great, great. Well, have a good day. I know that it's kind of the towards the weekend for you, so I hope you have good plans for the weekend and you're able to relax a little bit.
Yeah, thank you a lot.
Thank you so much. Have a
Yeah,
good day.
bye bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening. Subscribe for all the latest updates on fintech in the Middle East, and join the conversation over on our social channels. We look forward to seeing you at FinTech Surge in the Dubai World Trade Center from October 10th to October 13th. I'm Stephen Besse, and this has been the FinTech Surge podcast, creating a wealth of opportunities.